Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Joyce and Daniel Dubois have gone face to face with their upcoming opponents, and also together they've had a face-off. As we know, they do have a scheduled fight for October the 24th, but first they have these interim opponents, which are effectively tune-up fights. Michael Wallisch facing Joyce this weekend, July the 25th in the United Kingdom, and then Daniel Dubois, he will be facing Erik Pfeifer August the 29th. And just apologies if you can hear some rain pitter-pattering on the roof. It's pretty wet and dreary here at the moment here in New Zealand where I am. But in respect of this video, so we're going to cover off some of the press conference stuff, but it's also going to double as my sort of final preview for this Joyce and Wallisch fight this weekend. Because of the size of the fight, effectively it is a high-level tune-up. I don't want to do a separate video, so I'll cover off my thoughts on that and a couple of things that we should be watching out for. And then I will get to the Daniel Dubois and Erik Pfeifer comments, as well as their face-off, and a couple of thoughts on that one too. So we'll crack into it. So Joyce and Michael Wallisch this weekend in the BT studio. In respect of his opponent this weekend, Wallisch said of Joyce, and this was very different because to the Erik Pfeifer comments for Dubois, Pfeifer was sort of low-key trash-talking Dubois, whereas Wallisch, he kept it classy and above board, saying that Joyce was a good, tough opponent, that he respected him as a fighter, and that he immediately said yes to the fight and he wants to fight the best. But he does expect that he will be winning this weekend. Although, you know, he didn't really sort of say that with any verve or vigor. It just sort of, you know, felt like some sort of perfunctory statement that he was just saying because it was expected of him. But Wallisch and also Pfeifer, they are EC boxing heavyweights. So Frank Warren has obviously come to a deal with Eric Seelan of EC Boxing to get these guys over here for these couple of fights this month and next. Joyce, in response, speaking of Wallisch, he was actually very complimentary, saying that he was skillful, that he wasn't going to take him lightly, and that he needed to get a win to take and to get some momentum to take into that Daniel Dubois fight later this year. And he spoke about the sparring with Martin Bakole, which did grab headlines earlier this month, and that it was the best preparation that he could have had for this fight. And the question of Joyce's trainer, because his normal trainer Ismail Salas is Las Vegas based and wasn't traveling for this fight, he's had to employ the services of Steve Broughton. But Broughton is very aware of Ismail Salas' style, having worked with him, and Joyce spoke about the training camp going well. And this is where I sort of want to veer into the fight proper, because let's face it, this one here, for my money, it's going to be all over under 3 rounds. That would be in line with the Wallisch-Yoka fight and the Wallisch-Ajagba fight. Both of those prospects, like Joyce, you know, comparable sort of ability. This fight won't be going more than 3 rounds. If anything, it could be over in 2 rounds. This one isn't going to last long. Wallisch will give it a go. He will come and throw some punches, but he is open to being hit, and Joyce will find the target. But it'll be interesting to see the influence of Ismail Salas, who, you know, Steve Broughton's been channeling. Remembering Joyce had been in Las Vegas for a number of months working with Salas, and that was originally for the Dubois fight, which had to be postponed. So this is a case where he's been working with Salas and now taking that over to the Broughton training camp. I'm expecting to see a couple of things that Joyce will want to bring into that Dubois fight. I'm expecting to see more of that Salas influence. I think he will be moving more. I think a lot of people just think that Joyce will chug forward and, you know, do his normal sort of volume with little defense. But I do think there's going to be a bit more nuance in his performance. I think he's going to be moving, using the ring, and he's going to try to implement some of the things that Salas would have been drilling into him. So don't be surprised if Joyce isn't just plodding forward, throwing punches, and, you know, as people often say, looking slow as molasses and open to being hit. Because he will know that Daniel Dubois would just love Joyce walking forward at him and being able to effectively have a stationary target in front of him. I think Joyce has been working on things that he'll take into that next fight. But this one, all all over in 3 rounds. And before we get to the next fight, so there was a face-off between Daniel Dubois and Joyce. And I failed to mention before, you would have seen Wallisch and Joyce having a bit of a funny business with the perspex, between them during their face-off, doing some, Marcel Marceau type mind sort of tricks. And actually, there was a movie that came out recently that was based on Marcel Marceau, his life, and him being in the resistance and leading people to safety. It was a really good movie, but I digress. Anyway, so this face-off, we know that they're going to be fighting in October. I expect them to get past their opponents. No matter the sort of talk of banana skin fights, etc., this fight is going to happen. And even if one of them lost unexpectedly, which I don't foresee happening, they might even meet anyway. This event is, they've got too much sort of tied up in it. But it would be a massive embarrassment if one of them did lose. But in respect of this Erik Pfeifer and Daniel Dubois fight, also in the BT studio, August the 29th, no fans, etc., Erik Pfeifer was, low-key trash-talking Daniel Dubois. Said he's a good fighter, but he's not a good boxer. He says he's a puncher, and that's basically it. And then he went on to have a pot shot at Daniel Dubois' amateur career, saying that he didn't have a good amateur career. And Dubois, he sort of fired back and said, look, this is the pros, this isn't the amateurs, and that he learned everything that he needed, and he's got all the tools to beat Erik Pfeifer. And he did say that he sparred him when he was 16, but he said for this fight, he's just going to be too young, too strong. He's going to use his youth and power to take over. And both of them were quizzed on the whole lack of a crowd, and effectively Dubois said, look, without a crowd, doesn't matter if there's one or not, I'm going to perform. Sure, I'd like to have people there, feed off the energy, but with or without it, I will perform. And Pfeifer, he basically said, and this was, I don't know if something was lost in translation, but Eric Seelan, who was translating on behalf of Erik Pfeifer, said Dubois will lose because it was either a snob or a snot. It was, a little bit hard to hear what that was, but even that still sounded, whatever one it was, still sounded certainly very, very strange. But yeah, Erik Pfeifer, 7-0 at the moment, undefeated. He was a decent amateur. He didn't set the world on fire. He did have a couple of bronze medals in a long amateur career, beat Tony Yoka a couple of times. But overall, he wasn't sort of considered one of the best around in the amateur scene, and wasn't exactly sort of projected to sort of be a heavyweight champion or anything like that. And he is in his 30s now. He's left his run quite late to turn pro, but obviously he feels he can make a go of it. And this Daniel Dubois fight, if he does manage to cause an upset, it would be massive for him. But I think most of us don't foresee that happening. I think this will go some rounds. I think, Erik Pfeifer is a decent boxer, but if Daniel Dubois starts landing early and often, he's going to stop him. And I think most people would predict a stoppage at some point for Daniel Dubois. But if it actually goes a number of rounds, that may actually be good for Daniel Dubois, because he does need tests. Remembering the Joyce fight is going to be the biggest fight of his career, and you could say he's had relatively soft opposition in the past year or so. Apart from the Gorman and Kajanu fights, which I think were the right fights at the right time, some of the likes of Tete, Lati, and also Fujimoto didn't prove much chop, and I'm not sure how much Dubois got from them. So I do hope Pfeifer can come in, give him some rounds, because he will be the better for it. And if there is a test or two along the way, he'll be all the better for it. But what do you make of it all? Joyce, Michael Wallisch face-to-face. Joyce, Daniel Dubois face-to-face. Erik Pfeifer and Daniel Dubois face-to-face. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.